delay. It's like people that can't see the podcast. Like I hit record and you have to wait for it. And I was like, well, why is it not starting here? But yes, hello, welcome to another brand new, spanking new, a little spank there on it, a little stank on it, a little brand new episode of the Rebel Radio podcast. And welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. And if you enjoy spanking and that's your thing, well, I might oblige. Well, females only. Females only,
yeah. Not you, Frank. Damn it. Frank probably heard that. He
just got a little excited. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, oh, man, I thought, I had someone to confide in. But no, Frank. Keep looking.
No. Man, if I sound a little, I've been a little congested this week, so forgive my voice for that if I sound a little funky, little off there. But it's goddamn Texas weather, man. It's like 95, 195 degrees, I should say, for like a week. Then a little rain comes and it drops pollen out of the air and summer allergies, and it drops to like 85 degrees, and that 110 degree difference is like, oh my god, my allergies just opened up, and and
it happens, man.
It makes you not be able to breathe, and and all of a sudden the air outside has been nasty lately, hasn't it?
Been muggy, dude.
It's like muggy, and you can smell like shit there, and and smog, and it's like life in the big city.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. It's a mix of that. Little shit, little smog, someone ran over a skunk. So that's in there too. I passed through a couple of those areas this past weekend where I'm just like, where are these skunks coming from? Why do people keep running them over?
And no, I'm not going to say what I was thinking there. But, because yes, there are some spots in the city that are like that, and we'll just leave it at that. Man, so how are you doing, buddy? All right.
Yeah, good, man. I've been smoking some meat on the barbecue pit. I've been
okay. I thought you were going to say something else, but you want to smoke meat too, man. Whatever, dude. I mean, hey, that doesn't sound any better. Frank's really getting excited now.
He's like, oh yeah, meat. Oh,
I wasn't getting spanked, but I get my meat smoked. Oh.
Yeah, I've been trying to get into it. I got a new grill for my birthday. You bastard.
3 minutes into this fucking episode is derailed.
Off the chain, man. Off the rails. But yeah, we'll see how it came out.
I bet we will.
Damn it. You're course correct.
You're the one talking about me, man, not me.
It was a good week. There we go. How about that? I gave our friend Long I bought Beetlejuice because my wife and her friend really want to go see Beetlejuice. I'm like you. I'm a little bit more reserved towards the film. I can wait until it's like a $5.
There are the reviews enough for me to like, nope, no interest. I mean, they're just saying it's a cash grab movie. That's what most reviews are saying.
There's a fan event at the Cinemark near us, and I went ahead and got a couple tickets for them for it. And I didn't realize you could buy Beetlejuice on Vudu and get a $5 credit towards a Fandango purchase. And I didn't realize that. And the movie's $5, so it's like a wash. If you spend $5 buying Beetlejuice, you get that $5 right back to spend on a movie ticket. But I ended up sending that $5 to Long since it's been a while since I'd send him anything. Plus, I can't remember if I got him anything for his birthday. So there we go.
10 months ago. So.
Yeah, 10 months ago. It'll come up again in another couple months. But yeah, our Gundam Wing assembling friend, pretty cool models. Makes me want to get a Gundam Wing. He sent us those pictures. And that's another Frank thing. He likes Gundam too. This is a Frank geared episode. But yeah, man, it's been a fun couple days. We'll see all that Beetlejuice.
For new listeners, like, who the fuck is Frank? He's a former co-host of the show.
Long
time ago, almost like 300 episodes ago.
Really? I mean, we've been pumping up episodes for so long. I think
he's
the
been
last
back, I
time he
think,
was on,
once or twice since it. He was like
maybe
the
last
300th
year in
or
May.
something.
Yeah, last year
Like
in
the
the 300th
300th episode.
episode.
Might,
Yeah.
so that was a couple years ago. Yeah, I think we're on 4 or something.
Oh, 2 episodes. Yeah, two years
Yeah.
ago.
And we did invite him to the 10th anniversary, but he was a biatch and said, couldn't do it.
Yeah, he was too tired. Or as the French say, they're tired.
From Matt giving him the meat or whatever. But yeah,
He had the meat sweats. Couldn't come on.
Oh, Jesus.
What about you, man? You been doing any cool shit? Been making your own beef jerky or anything like that?
No, I do not play with my meat in that way.
Oh.
But no, man, just YouTube, man. That's been keeping me busy besides doing the podcast, man. In case people did not hear, I started a YouTube channel. My middle son, back in July. It's at Wyatt's Toy Show. So make sure you like and subscribe. And I told people last week, hey, if you could take a screenshot that you subscribe to the YouTube channel and heard this on the podcast, send me a screenshot to our Twitter at Rebel Radio Pod or to our email at the Rebel Radio Podcast at yahoo.com with your address, and I will send you a Rebel Radio sticker and button. No one took advantage of that yet, but I did see that friend of the show, Francisco, subscribe to the podcast. So thank you, Francisco, man. Thank you too, man. A few weeks ago, he sent me a message with some kind words about my good situations in my life, and just a good dude we've known a long time. And man, Francisco, next time if you're in Houston, man, make sure you send me a message. We got to try to do lunch or dinner or something, or hang out, man, because I would like to see you, man. And thank you for subscribing to the YouTube channel, and anyone else that did. Because we're having fun doing that. It's mostly wrestling toys. It looks like it's going to be all wrestling stuff, mostly from the looks of. We were trying to maybe we'll probably do some other toys here and there, but it's going to be mostly geared towards wrestling. So again, that's at Wyatt's Toy Show. And other than that, man, I've had a okay week. I actually did watch some things. So I actually, for once, first time in about a month, I have some things to talk about when we get to that moment in a second.
Wow.
Because yeah, man, I actually watched, can you believe this? I watched 2 movies this week. 2 and an episode of a TV show. I know, right? Like, what the fuck got overmarked this week?
Dude, you got busy, man.
I think I took a little break from too much college football on the PlayStation, and decided to watch a couple things. And one of them, I even got up this morning since my old ass was up at 6:30 in the morning. I'm like, we're gonna watch a movie, so I watched it this morning. And so yeah, and I was sitting here scrolling through the news, and there's not a lot, but I do want to talk about this, man. I don't know if you watch it, man. I sent you a text about the trailer for Superman, the story of Christopher Reeve, which is a long in the making documentary. This movie feels like it's been in the works for 3 or 4 years now. I remember hearing about it, and it's being released under the new DC Studios label, which is of course, James Gunn has created. And I want to say this must be going to be the first release under DC Studios, I would think. And the trailer for this documentary is fantastic. Just from the trailer, it certainly hits you in the feels. Knowing what we know about growing up watching Christopher Reeve play Superman, and the tragedy that bestowed upon him when he was paralyzed, it's going to have a limited release in theaters. I imagine it will be on Max within the next month or two. But man, it just looks really, really good, like a really well done documentary. I know early reviews have seen it, say it is excellent, that it pays a tribute to this man's life and his legacy. And being one of the guys that I first grew up watching wear tights on screen, bringing Superman to life. As much as I'm a big Batman fan, I will always say, and I've said it before on the show, Christopher Reeve, Superman was my first superhero, and he always will be. And I'm looking forward to seeing this, man. I know it's probably not going to be an easy watch. It's probably going to have its moments that are a bit sad and things, but I also think that it's going to pay a befitting tribute to who Christopher Reeve was.
Yeah, no, and it looks like that's what it's going to do. And it's nice seeing this. I actually can't believe we didn't get it sooner, because you see so many documentaries that came out. We had a Paul Walker documentary movie that came out 5-6 years ago, and he passed away in 2013, and Reeves, I want to say, passed away in like what, 06, 07, 08, like,
Been a while.
early 2000s. Maybe it was late 1990s. I remember it was one like around the time I was in high school or late middle school. But yeah, just 2000. Yeah, that would be it. And I remember because we used to have senior dress up days, and I wanted to get a costume that I could use multiple times so that I didn't have to keep asking my parents to buy stuff. So I asked them to buy me a Superman costume. And so they had like 80s Day, Superhero Day, and like dress as a famous actor day, comic book character day. And I was like, I can use these for every single one of them because I can be Christopher Reeve.
Right.
I can be Superman, for everyone. So yeah, man. I used it for 80s Day, and it's just said I was Christopher Reeve. But yeah, man. He's definitely one of those guys that, was very charming in his role. And you rooted for him as Clark Kent and as Superman. He was that good boy, that Boy Scout Superman that you saw classically. And when watching him, you really do get that effect that he was like, man, if he was Clark Kent, in real life, I would not think this person would be Superman. I would definitely look past this guy all the time.
No, he definitely
and he
did
had
the job well.
Humor too,
Yeah.
like in Superman 3 when he accidentally eats the dog food, and he played that character the same every single time he came to it, and just, found ways to impress us and get us to fully invest in him. And I can't wait to see this documentary about him. It's going to be fun.
I think it's gonna be a good watch. Definitely looking forward to that. So excited for that. Hopefully, it won't take too long to come to Max after it does its little theatrical run and everything. And it should be a good watch. Looking forward to that. But other than that, man, I guess I'll kick it off since I watched some things this week, and one of them was a movie that involved Superman. I think I mentioned on the podcast a while back that I started this film, but I never finished it, and I went back and started from the beginning, and that is the end of the Tomorrowverse. The 3-part Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths. I didn't watch all 3 parts, but I went back and watched part 1 and started over since I couldn't remember what had happened. And the Tomorrowverse animated films have not been all that great. We talked about this before. I liked Superman, Man of Tomorrow, and then I liked the Batman Long Halloween. But most of them have been kind of just not that great. But man, I kind of like the first part of Crisis on Infinite Earths. It sets up the story pretty well. I'm going to try to watch part 2 this week. Some really good action sequences. It takes this massive graphic novel by George Perez and condenses the story with modern storytelling techniques and makes a little but still keeps the elements of the main story from the comic books. And I think they do a good job adapting it. And it's exciting. It has some of the better, the animation in Tomorrowverse has always also been kind of suspect, but the animation in this is actually pretty good. The voice acting is really well done. So I enjoy it, man. I know the reviews on it have not been great, but I kind of like it. So I'm going to sit down and watch part 2 and part 3 and see how it all plays out. Well, part 3 is not on Max yet. I think it's coming next month. It's only the first 2 parts so far. So it's pretty good. I like it. I know Watchmen came out also, their first part of their Watchmen adaptation, which I want to see, but I'm kind of waiting until I'll just wait till it's Max to watch it. And I don't know if they haven't really announced that there's a new direction for the DC animated films. I know the Watchmen adaptation, I think there's a Batman movie coming out, but they haven't really officially said there's going to be a new continuity. But I also think maybe they should stay away from the continuity and just make films, like they used to on the early days of the animated universe when they didn't connect. Just make cool adaptations or cool movies. I think that's all you need to do.
And it worked, and
yeah,
people accept that. When it's animated, it's easier to get people to believe
yeah,
in the film and not try and be like, oh, well, that's not within continuity of this previous film.
right.
They do a good job of just taking it as it is.
Yeah, no, I think they need to keep doing it and see where they go with it. But Justice League Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1 was a good watch, and it's on Max, so you don't have to pay for it or anything. Enjoying that so far, and I'm going to stick with animation for a minute before I get to the other movie I watched. But I watched an episode, the first episode of Terminator Zero, the new anime that's on Netflix, and
I heard it's badass.
and it is, man. It's good. It's bloody as hell. It's a really intriguing story. It's going back and forth between 1997 and man, I can't remember 2000 something. I can't remember the current. It's a nice change of pace to tell a story in that universe that's not completely connected to John Connor and all that. So I'm like, I don't want to spoil anything. So I know, Matt, you're probably going to watch it, but it starts off really strongly. And the episodes are about 28 minutes each, so it's not a super long watch. Extremely well animated, and that's one thing that we talked about this when we saw the trailer for this. Like the Netflix animes, as they call them, have been like hit or miss. They never feel like anime. This feels like anime. It has it's really well done. I think the makers of this understood what they were doing. Like, we're gonna make a Terminator anime. Let's make a Terminator anime, and it's really well animated. It's really well. Sound is excellent. The voice work is excellent. Again, it's very gory and bloody. So it's not animation for kids. It's definitely adult. There's nudity in it too. Not like hardcore nudity. It's the typical Terminator nudity when they're turning, going through time or whatever. You see them naked.
Yeah.
But definitely, man, if you're a Terminator fan, you have to watch it. And I know you will, Matt. I know it just came out like 2 days ago, so you probably haven't had time.
I completely forgot it was coming out this weekend. Like I for some reason I thought it was coming out later, and then I actually saw someone making a review video about it earlier today, and I was like, oh man, I didn't get the chance to watch it. I had to babysit the grill today and keep my temperature right. So I was pretty focused on that and didn't watch anything today. I did all my watching earlier in the week. So I'm going to have to, maybe tonight after we record or tomorrow afternoon. Sounds like a good plan.
All right. And then, yeah, man, definitely get to that. The other thing I got up this morning, I watched man, this is a service that I know I share my password with you and Frank, but man, I'm really thinking about canceling the service because I never use it, and I know you guys probably wouldn't care. And that's Paramount Plus. But I did get up and watch A Quiet Place Day 1 this morning because it hit, I guess, yesterday, and it's a bit disappointing. It's not. It's
it looked
worth
like
the
it was
watch.
a bit of a mess.
It's worth the watch. Yes, it's worth the watch just for Lupita Nyong'o because she's excellent in everything she does. So she's worth watching. The creature work is good, the animation is good, but it's just like the trailers sell this to you as like this is what happens on day 1, right? Okay. There's still one thing I think we've waited for with the Quiet Place films is like some sort of background explanation as to why this happens, right? And I didn't love part 2 as much as I loved part 1, but I still thought part 2 was a decent follow-up, right?
Yeah.
This one basically this takes place a few days before. Well, it's sort of indicated it's a few days before A Quiet Place, the first film, but there's still no explanation of it. Basically, she's out and about. She's a hospice patient, so I guess she's dying, and she's out and about with her hospital group, and the aliens attack. And she basically has to survive. So there's still no background. They sold this to us as a prequel telling us what happened, right? And they don't.
Yeah.
It's basically we see the attack, which we saw the attack in the flashback in part 2. It's sort of in a sense, right? So we basically got the same movie, only in longer form. So that's where I was disappointed. I'm like, okay, well, I still want to know where these motherfuckers come from. And you didn't give it to me.
Now you're going to get day 0.
Right. And then, but there's some moments in it. There's a couple of not to that level of the bathtub scene in part one that have you on the edge of your seat going, oh my God, oh
Oh,
my God,
that's
oh my
hard to
God.
replicate.
You
Yeah.
know, but there's some moments in it. It's only 95 minutes, so it's an easy watch. And so I do think it's worth watching, but just lower your expectations. It's not as good as part one or part two.
Do you feel like it's missing Emily Blunt?
No, because I think Lupita's good enough to carry it. I think
Okay.
she's a strong actress. I think it's everything that's going around her. It's weird because it would spoil it if I said this, okay?
Okay.
Unless you don't care.
I
Unless
don't
you
care,
don't care.
but I don't know. Yeah, it's been out long
Well,
enough.
it's been out long.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's a hospice character, right?
Mhm.
Or a patient. And so the whole movie, she acts like she doesn't care if she dies, right? But then she changes her tone to survive this horrid ordeal, right? But then she basically she doesn't sacrifice herself, she doesn't die, but basically she does something to allow her friend to escape at the end of the movie, and she knows she's not going to be able to escape. So it's left that she's probably not going to make it because so you do all this to survive, but then you're going to die anyway because you're a hospice patient. So it was kind of like her story didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, I think it would have been more noble to have her actually die for her friend. So she was going to die anyway.
Yeah.
And when you see it, that will make sense. But it's worth a watch. I mean, if you've already watched the first two, you might as well watch this one and finish, so you can keep up with the saga. A Quiet Place just feels to me like it has either television show future written all over it where they tell a story and they flesh it out, or they'll, like you said, they'll do a day zero.
Yeah. Or the beginning, whatever. Origins.
Or day three or something. They'll do a third one,
Day three. Yeah, maybe they go forward. All right, we're going back. Now we're going forward again.
But so yeah, man. So I got a few things watched this week. Better than I've been to. I've been slacking the last few weeks, I will admit it. But I got some things watched today or this week.
Good, man. And I think you and me both watched a similar film on Peacock.
I didn't finish it. I do.
You didn't finish it?
Dude, I can't. It's not good.
Yeah, it's not good. Dude.
Okay, the film Matt's talking about is John Woo's own remake of his own film, The Killer. Man, okay, I like the lead actress. She's good.
Yeah.
But everyone else around her is awful. The acting's bad. The musical score is terrible, which is strange because in the editing room, John Woo he liked the score because usually his movies, he's done some of his own music and films, and he's done himself, and it feels almost comedic. The score, it's not drama. It's just like I got about halfway through it and I couldn't keep going, man. It's just like there's some Woo stuff in it. There's pigeons or slow motion.
Yeah.
There's shots of the eyes and things like that I really dug. And I probably will finish it because I'm stubborn like that, and I will watch John Woo direct.
I think the ending is.
I will watch Woo direct water dripping.
Yeah.
But man, it's not. The first hour or so is just not very good, man. And if you say it gets a little better, maybe I'll give it a shot.
A little better. It's okay. It's not The Killer. It's not a good follow-up for any of his Hong Kong films. But he tried. I think, it's in the same vein, but different. Obviously, he's not going to he didn't make it tit for tat, as you can tell from the beginning. Yeah. But there's a lot of nods. A lot of.
Well, from the looks of it, I didn't make it that far in the film. From the looks of the trailer, the finale takes place in a church, just like the first one.
Yep, yeah. Just like the first one.
Or the original. I shouldn't say the first one, the original.
Sam Worthington is kind of just vanilla in the film.
Yeah. He looks like he's doing it for a paycheck.
Yeah. He's just like, all right, I'm here.
Yeah.
And then the two cops, the two buddy cops.
They're the worst parts of the movie.
Yeah. They're just, I feel like there's something that could have been there with the guy that was in, what movie was he in?
Well, they feel like they're reading their lines. There's no charisma between them. He's
got a revolver, which I'm like, okay, that usually means like, you mean business. You're trying to be friggin' Dirty Harry, but he's not Dirty Harry. There's a platform there where he probably could have been a more prominent and outstanding character, but he's just kind of a couch there. He's a piece of furniture. There's some comedy that they utilize him with towards the end, and it's okay. But yeah, the lead actress is the best part of the film. But I think she's elevated even more so because just everyone around her is like vanilla or worse.
Yeah. I also think it bugs me too that it's one of those movies that's shot with that modern digital camera and a high frame rate, so it gives it almost this fake made for TV look.
Oh yeah.
And I the original his Hong Kong films, like his original version of The Killer, have that old school grainy film look to it, which makes the movie work. And this movie feels too clean for an assassin remake of The Killer. It feels like there's no grit to it. I feel like it should be grittier. Chow Yun-Fat's, got that lip thing going, and the glasses, and he's got that grit to him. And she feels like she could have that, but the way the film is shot makes her not allow her to have it. But on the flip side of it, she has like this certain sexiness to her as an assassin, which is what a female should have instead of the grit and grime of Chow Yun-Fat's assassin. But it's just the way the film is shot takes me out of it a bit. And again, God, the music score is terrible. That's probably one of the worst parts of it.
Yeah, I mean, the music didn't blow me away. Like the film that we're about to talk about today, the music's great. It's perfect, especially for the location. But it's like watching this, I wonder, what he was listening to, what John Woo was listening to whenever they approved it.
Well, I also feel like because Peacock picked up the distribution for this, maybe he didn't have some say in some things. Maybe. I'm just wondering. I don't know. Oh man, I'm glad he's back in America and doing films. We're fixing it in a minute here to talk about his first American film, but I hope that
they can't all be 10s, right? They can't all be 10s.
No, but I want him so badly to have a huge mega hit in America again before he retires. And I'm not talking mega hit like money wise. I'm just talking make a really great final American film. For
every A Better Tomorrow, there's a paycheck, baby.
Right. Right. But even Silent Night wasn't bad. But then again, Silent Night's
I like Silent Night.
Silent Night's better than Paycheck. It's
oh yeah.
Silent Night on a John Woo level is probably close to the movie that we're talking about today. So I hope that Woo makes it. And we'll talk a little bit more Woo about his future as we go on here in the next several minutes. But anything else you watched this week?
Yeah, I mentioned it pre-show. I bought Twins with Arnold Schwarzenegger, Danny DeVito. Also stars that guy who played Quado in Total Recall, and some other character actors. And I can never remember the female that stars in that film, but it's I remember watching it as a kid because it would come on Paramount whenever it was just a TV station. And I remember Arnold singing the yakety yak, don't talk back on the plane. They count the papers and the trash. And he's just singing it really loud and crazy and goofy. And I remember that being funny. There's some funny parts in there. But I think they try and make Arnold like comedic well, obviously it's a comedy, but he's being comedic through the entire film. And that's the problem. Arnold, you've got to utilize him as both action and comedy, like you do in Kindergarten Cop. And Ivan Reitman, he directed this. He also directed Kindergarten Cop. And he gets it right in Kindergarten Cop. Much more than he did in this film because there's hardly any action. He punches a couple guys, and protects Danny DeVito a couple times, but it's not like the Arnold we are used to seeing. Even like the red heat stuff, the goofy shit. But yeah, it was okay. It was an okay watch. It's kind of weird. You've got like 7 dads and then 1 mom, and you're just like, some as an adult, you're like, all right, how did that work? They made Arnold and Danny DeVito out of these 7 guys, and it's 1 mom. It's like, how did they procure that? But yeah, it's okay. Danny DeVito is Danny DeVito. Arnold is charming. I don't think the movie holds up as well as I would like it to, but yeah, I watched that. I watched another Arnold film, but I won't give that one away. We'll talk about that one in a few weeks. Other than that, I want to say, I checked out 21 Jump Street. What's funny is I'd never seen, and the remake, the one with Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. Yeah. I'd seen 22 Jump Street. I've never seen 21 Jump Street.
Really?
And I was actually,
the second one.
Oh, for real? You saw 21, but not 22? Yeah. I thought 22 was hilarious.
I only saw 21 because I think I have it on my Vudu, because I think it was one, remember back in the day when Vudu used to give out free movies when you signed up, or if you bought something. I don't know, you remember when you first signed for Vudu, you got like 15 free movies. And then if you bought something, you would get a free movie. They say, man, I probably have 20 movies on my Vudu that I got for free, 20 or 25 back in the early days. And I think that was one of them. And that's one reason I watched. It was okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but I saw that 21 Jump Street was on, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna watch it. We want to watch, something funny, me and my wife, and let's put this on. It's got Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill, and they were good in the second one, and I want to see what the first one was all about. And Jonah Hill is pretty funny in the movie. He's undercover, and there's a part that happens in the movie where someone he recognizes or knows, platonically, is at the mall while he is undercover trying to, get information on these kids dealing drugs in high school. And so he's the narc undercover, and this lady's like, oh, and she calls him by his real name, and he's like, well, what? And he tries to run over there and tries to tell her to, get the hell away. She's like, your mother told me you were undercover. And he's like, I'm undercover right now. And she's like, what? And the guys that he's with start coming closer. And so he like pushes her into this display of shoes and just pushes her away. And they're like, well, what the fuck did you do that for, man? It's like this older lady. He's like, I don't know. She walked up to me. She said, I have arthritis. Let me get a hold of that dick. And she'd grab my dick, man. So I pushed her away. And I was like, what? It's just so random. And Jonah, he has a knack for that stupid idiot humor comedy. And he does it fairly well in 21 Jump Street. And Brie Larson's in it, a younger Brie Larson, and she definitely looks like she's in high school in this film, even though she's like early 20s. But it's entertaining. It was funny. I enjoyed it.
Apparently, Jonah has now become Hollywood's new Shia LaBeouf a bit. He's a bit. He's lost weight and gained weight and lost weight again. He's had weight issues, and apparently he's having trouble getting roles because he's very demanding, very difficult to work with, and he's let it go to his head. That's why you haven't seen him on screen much lately. So he's probably who knows if next time we'll see him on screen. But that was a pretty funny movie. I remember that scene, and like I said, I only watched it once. It was okay. Never watched the sequel though. Maybe one day. Who knows?
Yeah, man.
I hate comedies. Old running gag on the show.
That was a running gag. I think the second one's better, in my opinion. I just think there's more stupidity in that film, and it works. I think it works, because you've got so much contrast. You've got the serious Ice Cube, who's also in the first one, and does he play like their boss, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of like he reminds me of the Lethal Weapon sergeant. He's like he gets very angry, very loud, very demanding, very outspoken, and he provides that change of terrain, so to say, between the actors. Yeah, maybe one day. Maybe one day we'll watch them and talk about them, and who knows? I think it's a possibility. Long will probably come on for that one because I think he's a
I think
secret
it probably
Channing
won't
Tatum
happen,
fan.
but okay.
I don't know, man. Channing Tatum's hot now. He's
Oh yeah,
Gambit.
you'd probably but you'd probably know when you're packing your meat, you'd prefer Magic Mike.
Magic
But
Mike.
uh, don't lie, I
Save
know
the
you've
last
seen it.
dance.
I had to sit. Anyone that's married had to sit through that because I was still married at the time. I had to watch it. I was like, what the fuck am I watching?
Him and Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah,
All right.
but at least us men have striptease and showgirls. But
This is
anyway,
true. We do
um,
have that.
all right. Well, let's get into today's featured film. If you did not already know, it is a John Woo film, which we just talked about his remake of The Killer, and it is his first foray into American cinema. Originally, he turned this film down when he was looking for American films, and he was also offered Face Off, the science fiction version, and he turned it down. He said, "You know what? I'm not ready yet." So he went and made Hardboiled, which is all-time classic, probably still my number one favorite action film of all time. And then he came back to America and said, "Okay, you know what? I'm ready to do it." And he took on the Hard Target script, and people don't know this, but at the time, his company had rights to the Face Off script, which he would rewrite, rework, and make a few years later, of course, with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, he made this film called Hard Target, which was, and he initially, he initially didn't want Van Damme in the role.
No,
I don't know who he didn't really have in mind who he did want.
Kurt Russell.
That's right. It was Kurt Russell. But the studio didn't want to pay Kurt Russell the money he wanted. And Kurt Russell really wanted to work with John Woo. But so did Van Damme. So at first, Woo was kind of like, I don't know. He almost walked away. But then he thought about it and he said, you know what? He had a change of heart. He met with Van Damme, and Van Damme, when he found out what a fan Van Damme was of it and knew his cinema history, he decided to make the film with him. And Van Damme was a big star at this time. People forget, people now in 2024, newer movie fans might not realize, but at that time, Van Damme was quite a huge star across the world. Maybe not a huge box office draw, but a star.
He was coming up there he had done Bloodsport,
Bloodsport and Universal Soldier and Kickboxer. He had some good hits.
Mm-hmm.
So they brought in Van Damme to make this film, and they were looking for their villains. And Lance Henriksen did this movie for less money than he normally would make because he wanted to work with John Woo so badly. So did what's Voslo? He wanted to work with Woo also.
Yeah,
I mean, when they found this was it was a big deal when they was found out through Hollywood that John Woo, the legendary John Woo, was making a film in Hollywood. A lot of actors wanted to work with him. There were people that wanted to be in this film, but again, budget restraints kept the studio from hiring some of the bigger name people. But that said, we still have a good cast. A good cast. I mean, you like Van Damme's ass and jeans. A decent cast. Van Damme was still in the process of learning a lot of English and still struggled with some things, but he does a good job in this movie. You can tell Voslo
he almost feels like a secondary character with his dialogue. Voslo and Hendrickson have most of the dialogue.
And you can tell one thing I love about this film, and we'll summarize it in just a minute. Well, we'll summarize real quick, and make sure I don't forget what I was going to say about Voslo and Hendrickson.
Yeah.
Basically, Hendrickson's character is a bad guy who's runs the city in New Orleans because the police are on strike. And they have a little game going where they have these rich guys pay them ridiculous amounts of money to hunt people, essentially, and kill them. So they buy off the police that are around while the rest of them are on strike. Combat veterans. And so Van Damme's character of Boudreaux comes in. He's a drifter who comes into town. He takes jobs on fishing boats and meets Yancey Butler's character. I can't think of her name at the moment, who's looking for a missing father. So he takes on the job she offers him to find her missing father and finds out that her father had died as her father became part of this game, was shot by Henderson's characters, which eventually leads to them capturing Boudreaux and putting him into this game. And of course, in classic John Woo style, Boudreaux fights back and kills them all and wins the day.
Yep.
And that's
That's
essentially
basically it.
the story. And the original work print of this was about 30 minutes longer, where it fleshed out more of the characters. And this is where there was some controversy in the film. Van Damme didn't like that cut. He's like, hey, you're making a Van Damme movie and not a Lance Henriksen movie. So Van Damme and Wu kind of fought, and Van Damme in the studio cut the film down to make it more of a Van Damme film. And Wu was not happy and did not want to work with Van Damme again, but they did reconcile years later. Van Damme apologized. He said, hey, I was a young actor. I was a star. The studio wanted me to do it. I was kind of doing what I was told. And years later, John Woo and Van Damme did make up. So it wasn't one of those situations where they were mad at each other. They was just kind of caught in studio.
Working conditions. Yeah.
Working conditions. So the things I love about this movie is it's classic Woo with the slow motion, the focus. There's a lot of focus on character and story as much as there is action. Henriksen and Voslo, you can tell, watched Hardboiled, The Killer, A Better Tomorrow, because they feel like they're in a John Woo film. That you can tell they are.
The cheesy dialogue.
The dialogue, the way they're handling the weapons, the way they're looking. You can just tell these guys were excited to be in a John Woo film.
Hendrickson has a one-shot break action pistol. Like he's, the marksman, just a sniper with a handgun, which is pretty over the top and very Wooish.
Oh yeah, we get an over the top pigeon scene in this movie where the pigeon's flying in the warehouse and Van Damme walks in, and so you got all your classic Wooisms. And when they tested this film for audiences in America, Americans didn't like the slow motion and the birds and stuff. They were like, but really? Woo, that's one. They didn't understand it. But Woo said, no, this is my style. It's and the studio was behind on that. They wanted John Woo to make a film, and they left it in there. And of course, it became legendary. I'm guessing they tested this film for people who had never watched a John Woo film. That's the only thing I can think of. What are you gonna say?
They did want him to make the film, but they had a backup plan, and they installed him just like an NFL team brings in an offensive coordinator that used to be a head coach. Sam Raimi, executive producer. They had him there.
Well, and they used the excuse that Raimi was there to help with John Woo's English, just in case. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I wonder how the movie would turn out if it would be way too slapstick. You'd see the camera snaking around from the ground and moving up. Right. It's like that would be very, very weird.
It's interesting. I wonder how much Raimi actually. I would imagine as a director, and you're Sam Raimi, and you're working with this Hollywood or this Japanese or Hong Kong legend in John Woo, that you had to respect him. And I can't imagine Raimi probably. Yeah, I can't imagine Raimi stepping on his toes too much. Yeah.
No, he was starstruck a bit. Yeah. He was very excited to be there and be able to be on the cinematic team, as a producer. But yeah, I don't think he didn't. There wasn't much for him to do. Woo did a good job. He handled everything the way he was supposed to.
Yeah, I mean, the film did leave a little bit of a bad taste in Woo's mouth for the studio taking it and cutting it, but he didn't let him leave. He went on after this, of course, to make Broken Arrow, which 20th Century Fox let him do what he wanted with that film. And then he went on to make, of course, Face Off and Wind Talkers. And he did face some issues later on that made him leave Hollywood, but that's a whole other story. But it started with this film. And people don't, it's hard to paint a picture without the internet back in 1992, 93, and how big of a name that John Woo was. I mean, this guy was very legendary on the underground market. People that knew cinema knew what The Killer was, knew what A Better Tomorrow was. Hardboiled had a decent release in U.S. cinemas, played in like limited theaters and things like that. Yeah. And there was word of mouth. And again, studios wanted this guy. He refused to come to America for a long time. Like I said, he almost made this movie before he made Hardboiled, but he decided to wait a few more years. Nicolas Cage wanted to be when he heard Woo was coming to America, he wanted to be in a Woo film also. I could not find any information whether he auditioned for this, but I know Nicolas Cage tried to be in Broken Arrow and was not able to do it. And that's why he ended up later on doing 2 John Woo films with Wind Talkers and, of course, Face Off. But that's just how big of a name this guy was. I mean, John Woo to this day is still a huge name in Hollywood circles. I mean, he's the master of action. I mean, you don't get movies like John Wick, The Matrix, and those movies, I think, without John Woo doing what he did.
You don't. Yeah. Woo, he's like you said, the way of the bullet, that originated from John Woo, and Wanted, Matrix, and like you said, John Wick, all pull heavily from John Woo.
Yeah, he takes action and he makes it almost feel like a ballet, and you even see it in this film, especially the final fight in the end. It feels almost like watching
in the warehouse.
In the warehouse, yeah, it feels like a musical sequence. And John Woo has always
like
said,
hard-boiled.
Yeah, John Woo has always said he will write action scenes and storyboard them to music, because he's always talked about that, how he feels like they're like a ballet and their music, and that's what blows my mind about his remake of The Killer is music has always been so important to him, from putting on the headset on the child in Face Off, to just what I don't know the name of the instrument, to like the scene, the tea house scene in Hardboiled, and the classic Japanese music playing in the background. It's just always so important to him. And so his action scenes do feel like a ballet. And Van Damme, I know the other criticism I know Van Damme did have is he wasn't a big fan of his action scenes being slowed down, because he was always known for high intensity martial arts. But when Van Damme saw the finished product of the film, he came to understand, like, okay, I understand the drama of it, because it was different for him too. He had never done anything like this, and he had to trust in John Woo as the movie that was being made. And I think, go ahead.
No, and John Woo did a good job of highlighting and showcasing, Jean-Claude's ability to throw kicks, his ballet-like martial arts flexibility, his double split kick that he likes to do, that's in here. So yeah, he was able to showcase and capture what we know and love Jean-Claude Van Damme for, from his films, whether you're watching The Quest,
dude,
Lionheart.
The Quest sucks.
Okay, but The Quest does suck. Okay, Lionheart. What was the other? Universal Soldier, Time Cop. You name it. I won't say Street Fighter, even though that part we talked about music earlier. The gunslinger-esque theme that plays for him when he's walking through the town. It's actually named Street Fighting Van Damme. And what's funny is that this was made before he was cast for Street Fighter, so it's almost like the composer could see into the future.
Wait, what?
Yeah, the name of the track is called Street Fighting Van Damme. And this was made the year before he went into Street Fighter. He got cast for Street Fighter. And it's almost like this guy, he knew this guy was going to be Guile.
Yeah. What's funny is I watched this, and it was originally an NC-17 rating, because Woo was used to making Hong Kong films where you could do what you want. Violence wasn't a big deal. The Killer, Hardboiled are extremely violent, and so he had to cut this movie a few times. And it's funny watching it now. I didn't really think it's really that violent. Like, it's bloody, it's got its moments, but it's like RoboCop was worse. Predator was worse.
Dude, how did Peter Weller getting his arms blown off?
Yeah, I'm like, how did this get NC-17 in 1993? I'm like, this isn't that bad. I was like,
for real, man.
So that was kind of funny. I was like, maybe it's the idea of murdering people for sport, maybe. But
maybe it's because they were veterans. Maybe that's why they're basically homeless veterans, which is sad. Whenever you think about what they're doing. They're finding homeless veterans that are down on their luck, saying here's $10,000, which back in the 90s, man, that's like saying like $50,000 now. The buying power that you could have, when cars used to only cost like $3,000, and you could buy a house for $40,000, or less, back in the 90s. Friggin' crazy. But yeah, preying on veterans who were down on their luck and decorated, just fell off the wagon and weren't able to get themselves up, and giving them a little bit of hope. But oh yeah, by the way, you got to dodge a freaking crossbow, and machine guns, handguns, shotguns, and it's Louisiana, so you got to dodge the crocodiles too. But yeah, I like the second veteran that they have to come after. He actually gets a hold of one of the guns and turns the tables on the guy paying for Lance Hendrick's services. And then they go and kill the guy anyways. So it's kind of like The Running Man, where, you think there's light at the end of the tunnel and possibility of coming out okay on the other side, but there never is.
No.
They control the beginning and the end of that game. And that's what makes them even worse. Can't even make good on their commitments. It's hard to find honest criminals in this day and age, Mark. Where are the honest criminals at?
Yeah, but no, man, overall though, I think that this is a solid first effort for John Woo. Not his best American film by any means. I think that'll always be Face Off. I think that's his best American film. But you definitely see the beginnings of his Hollywood career here. You see his inspirations. You see, or not his inspirations. You see his wooisms. We know where he came from and where he would go, and is still going. And that's why, rewatching this, it's like, I know it's not his best American film, but then trying to rewatch his remake of The Killer, and I'm like, where's that guy? At least be as good as Hard Target,
Yeah.
And
I
the
mean,
remake
this
of The
is
Killer
Jean-Claude's best film. In my opinion.
Oh yeah.
Just and I don't think I bought this movie and I started watching it. I never finished it. And now that I've watched it from beginning to end, I'm like, this is Jean-Claude's best film. I thought maybe it was Bloodsport or Time Cop.
Dude, no.
But it's
Bloodsport is okay.
Yeah,
Bloodsport's good because of the last 30 minutes of the movie. The rest of the movie is kind of like, it's okay.
Yeah.
No, this is definitely probably the best film he's done. Because even Universal Soldier is kind of like a little cheesy in parts, But this is definitely his best movie. And again, it's not Woo's best, but I mean, I think that shows the power of Woo's ability as a director, and he's also an actor's director. Most actors, I've never heard any actor complain about working with John Woo, because he allows the actors to do their thing, and he lets them do. He doesn't really change things. He just wants them to go do what they do.
No, yeah, just like in Mission Impossible 2, when we covered that film. He asked Tom Cruise, what do you feel comfortable doing? What do you like to do? He's like, I like to rock climb. He's like, then let's have you rock climb. Yeah. And that's the beginning of the film.
That's another perfect example of the power of John Woo. Tom Cruise picked him to direct Mission Impossible 2. And he wanted, and if he had said, and Tom Cruise basically told Woo he wasn't going to take no for an answer. And of course, Woo went on to do it. And I know it was, much maligned, audiences didn't care for it as much, but I really like that film. I don't know why. I like all the Mission Impossible films. I remember when I found out he was directing part 2, I was excited. He will always be my all-time favorite director. As much as I enjoyed John Wick 4 and some of the recent action films we've had, his Hard Bullet is always going to be my all-time favorite action film. I think the hospital scene is just an incredible scene.
Books at the same time.
Oh, and it's my all-time favorite action director, and always will be. And I really enjoyed Silent Night last year, and I was watching that thinking, I kind of compared Silent Night a bit to Hard Target. It was his start in Hollywood. I feel like Silent Night was a good start for his Hollywood comeback, and I hope he is getting up there in age. I hope that he has one more really solid American film before he's done. And that's what I hope. And I would love to see him come back around and maybe work with a Nicolas Cage or even a Joe Carnahan again. Is how you say his name from Silent Night.
Yeah.
And maybe
who you're talking about.
Yeah, and just do something really solid before he's done, before he retires.
I would love to watch him and do an installment in a franchise, and one of these franchises, and just stamp his name again. In history, like maybe come back and direct another Mission Impossible film,
or even
or something like that.
Make a Bond film. Hire John Woo to make the new James Bond film. I don't think it'll happen, but
dude, he would make Aaron Taylor Johnson look looked like, freaking,
I
insert any classically trained actor here.
This is such a simple thing we're both not even thinking about. Give me a John Woo American gangster film, since that's what he's known. He did gangster films in Hong Kong with The Killer and Hardboiled. Give me a gangster film. Give me John Woo doing a gangster film for American audiences. We got elements of it in Face Off, but man, give me that, dude. I think that'd be a freaking incredible.
That would be good.
And see where he goes forward with his career. But Hard Target was a good start for American audiences and a good watch. It's on Amazon Prime. If you've never seen Hard Target before, you can watch it on there streaming. And it's not a real long movie too. It runs about an hour and 35 minutes. So it's pretty quick viewing. Yeah. And some good action moments, man. If you're an action fan, it's definitely worth watching. But it was a fun one to cover on the podcast, and it felt an appropriate time with John Woo being back with Silent Night last year and his current remake of The Killer. But Woo, don't remake your own films. Let's do something new.
Yeah,
The Killer,
make something fresh.
Yeah, The Killer's an all-time classic. It didn't need to be remade. But then again, I think that's what's so weird about it. Like, okay, The Crow didn't need to be remade either, but at least it wasn't Proyas remaking his own film. I wonder if any other director has ever remade their own film. I'd have to look that up.
That's a good question.
We might have to research that and answer at the beginning of next week's episode. But next week's episode, let's move on as we trek forward. We're a couple weeks away from Matt's birthday movie, but we're not getting there yet. But we're going to go next week, and this movie. There's no rhyme or reason. That's why we're doing this movie this time of the year. We just felt like it's a movie that we've had on the list of movies to do for a long time. And we never, I was kind of waiting until Mortal Kombat 2 came out to cover this one, but I'm tired of waiting. So we're going to do this now while it's available to watch on Max. And we're going to stay in the 90s. We're going to go back to 1995. And we are going to cover the original video game adaptation of Mortal Kombat.
In each of us, there burns the fury of a warrior. In every generation, a few are chosen to prove it.
One of you three will decide the outcome of the tournament.
Three strangers will travel to the mystical realm of Outworld to defend our people against Shang Tsung.
You will die.
And his forces of darkness. In an ancient tournament. One more victory.
Your soul is mine.
And our world is theirs.
It has begun! You can't run from me, Shang! I don't need to run.
Combat begins.
The OG. This is the we, like you mentioned earlier, that Van Damme was in Street Fighter. We did have Street Fighter, but
Yes.
Mortal Kombat was the first video game adaptation that showed that video successful, and that video game adaptations could be made and be successful at the box office. And it went on to spawn a absolutely terrible sequel that's one of the worst movies of all time.
Yes.
But the first one's pretty good and pretty watchable. With Christopher Lambert as Raiden, and he's probably the biggest known actor in the film.
Mhm.
But
Sonya Blade. She wasn't
wasn't well known at the time, though.
Oh yeah, at the
Moderately,
time.
I guess.
Yeah, not largely. She had some notable parts.
Yeah,
She's
but
probably next on that list.
This is a fun movie that checks off all the boxes a video game adaptation should check off as you go through it, and we're going to watch it and talk about it next week. I know I've teased this for a couple weeks, a top 5, but I'm promising you now that there will be a top 5 next week, and it will be associated with video games. So get ready for that for next week. So we're going to do Mortal Kombat on next week's episode. But until then, the rebelradiopodcast.com for all your Rebel Radio needs and links to all the wonderful apps that we're on so you can listen to the show. And we thank you, as always, for listening. This has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
Until next time, remember, as always, just go there
and do it.
With Matt's meat.